Santa Fe Trail Scenic and Historic Byway, the Mountain Branch. The Santa Fe Trail Mountain Branch is located in southeast Colorado. It spans 188 miles from the Kansas border to the New Mexico border. Today our journey takes us to the Sand Creek Massacre site, near the town of Chivington and Eads, Colorado. It was part of the vast territory of the Cheyenne and Arapaho Indian tribes. Southern Cheyenne chief Black Kettle was a great leader with a vision of coexistence between white society and the culture of the plains. Explorers, trappers, and traders lived peacefully among the Indian tribes at first. William Bent welcomed Indian trade at Bent's Old Fort from 1833 to 1848 when the Indian Wars broke out. Buffaloes were slaughtered for their hides by the thousands. Black Kettle could no longer control his warriors. Settlers were invading their lands and depleting their resources. War parties took revenge on anyone on their lands. In 1851, the Fort Laramie Treaty gave 51 million acres of eastern Colorado and western Kansas to the Cheyenne Indians. The treaty was ignored and the unrest on the plains grew. Pike's Peak Gold Rush of 1859 created an explosion of white encroachment on the lands. Rather than evict white settlers, the government demanded a new treaty ceding all Cheyenne lands except for Sand Creek Reservation. Black Kettle signed the Treaty of Fort Lyon in 1861. The reservation could not sustain all the Indians forced to live there. Resources dwindled, and epidemic diseases soon swept through the Indian encampments. By 1862, the nearest herd of buffalo was over 200 miles away. The Indians were starving and desperate for resources. Many young Cheyenne men began to leave the reservation to prey upon the livestock and goods of nearby settlers and passing wagons. On September 28, 1864, Cheyenne and Arapaho chiefs met in council with Colorado Governor John Evans and military commander Colonel John Chivington at Fort Weld near Denver. The commander of Fort Lyon, Major Edward Wynkoop, made the arrangements. No treaty was signed, but Black Kettle left Fort Weld believing he had secured a promise of safety in exchange for leading his band back to the Sand Creek Reservation. Chivington had no intention of honoring the promise. Evans supported his call for volunteer Indian fighters, 100-day enlistments to wipe out all the hostile Indians in Colorado. Chivington and his troops went to Fort Lyon, where he was advised of Black Kettle's surrender. Chivington ignored the surrender, and on November 29, 1864, moved the 700 volunteers into position to attack Sand Creek. Most of the Cheyenne warriors were on a hunting party, leaving behind the elderly women and children. After firing howitzer cannons into the village, Chivington's volunteers swept the creek bed, killing every Indian they found. White flags of surrender were ignored. After 6 hours, about 150 lay dead, 2/3 of them women and children. The atrocities committed were virtually unpunished and remain a stain on the history of the United States. A joint congressional committee concluded that Chivington deliberately planned and executed a foul and dastardly massacre at Sand Creek. In response to the massacre, President Lincoln replaced Colorado's territorial governor. On April 28, 2007, the Sand Creek Massacre became a National Historic Site. It's managed by the National Park Service and open daily from April to November.